everyone, my name is Laurie Pasteryak and I'm coming to you today from the Fairfield Museum and History Center's Collections Storage Area, one of those magical back of the house places where the museum's collection is stored. So we have a lot of archives and photographs, art, as well as objects here on site at the museum back in storage. Today in particular, I'm coming to you to talk about this old thing. And for this old thing, we're highlighting this plate, which is known as the Constitutional Grievances plate. So today, the museum is still closed to the public, but we're looking forward to opening our doors safely very soon. So please look out for any information as well as visiting information upcoming on our website and our social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and www.fairfieldhistory.org. And so today, again, we're looking at this particular decorative plate. It's about 8 inches wide. It's creamware. It has blue transfer print in terms of its glaze, its type. It has a scalloped edge. It's very shiny. But in particular, it has a lot of details. So we're going to look closely at those details, but after this introduction in particular, so you can see the plate itself in my hands here, and we're going to take a look at a few of those details, which shares a lot more about why this plate was made. So it was likely made over in Staffordshire, England, which is interesting because it actually advocates for American history and documents American history and anti-slavery and the abolitionist movement. So in the early 19th century, there were several propaganda and symbols that came out in a variety of different ways for the abolitionist movement. And one of those ways was in ceramics. So the production of this ceramic and actually the sale of this ceramic actually helped fund, and probably a very small amount, but did help fund the abolition movement, the anti-slavery movement. And it actually documents an interesting part of history. A gentleman named Elijah Lovejoy was actually killed by a mob in Illinois for publishing anti-slavery ideas. The mob actually took his printer and threw it and also murdered him. And so this particular plate documents that in history, but it also documents the Constitution and words from the Constitution, and also a variety of symbols from the United States during this period. It was, of course, made after 1837, after Elijah Lovejoy was killed. And this particular for ceramics meditation, its messages are, of course, advocating for equality, and it's using the words of our founding documents here in America to stress home that message. So this is something that somebody would have purchased and they would have established in their home. It's certainly not something that you would have found in all homes. This would have been in mostly elite homes. It would have been an expensive plate, but the message on it for equality for all would have been a bold statement for one to make who were part of the abolitionist movement. So we're going to take a little closer look at some of the details in this and talk about what those things mean in history and a little bit more about Elijah Lovejoy.
So now that you can see the plate, we're going to take a look at a lot of the details and symbology that it is just layered into. You'll see that the center of the plate actually has a lot of words on that, and those words are, of course, the First Amendment that make up the Bill of Rights in the United States Constitution. And that First Amendment, of course, is that right to freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to peaceably assemble, and also to address constitutional grievances with the United States. But beyond those words, there's a lot going on here, especially around the outer edges of the plate in terms of symbology and history. And we're going to take a closer look at those details now. So the first detail, and I believe the reason why this plate was actually made out in Staffordshire, England, is to memorialize the killing of Elijah Lovejoy. Elijah Lovejoy was born in Maine, November 9th, and he was the son of a Congregationalist minister. He graduated from Colby College. And if you're interested, Colby College actually does give a Lovejoy Award for freedom and of expression and freedom of the press, as well as those who demonstrate zero fear and a lot of bravery. So Elijah Lovejoy went to Colby College. He also went through Princeton Theological Seminary, and he moved out to Missouri to launch a religious newspaper, which was then called the St. Louis Observer. He was an editor, and at the time, Missouri was a slave state, and Lovejoy wrote moderately about slavery. However, as slave uprisings increased, there was an incident in which a freed enslaved man was trapped and killed. And at that time, the mob leaders were freed by the court, and Lovejoy, criticized the decision remarkably so. And as a result, his press was destroyed and his home was burglarized. He then moved across the river to the free state of Illinois, and during the time that he was there, he of course wrote with an anti-slavery and published with an anti-slavery perspective. And again, his press was destroyed again and again. His friends organized a militia, and they actually secretly bought and installed another press after twice of it being destroyed in Illinois. But on the night of November 7th, 1837, so Lovejoy was only 35 years old or 34 years old when this happened, a mob attacked this new press and the militia fought back. They killed one, and eventually the mob set fire to the building and drove out the militia. While Lovejoy was attempting to extinguish the blaze, he was shot and killed. He was buried not 2 days later on his 35th birthday, and when in commemorating and memorializing his death, John Quincy Adams quoted him as the first American martyr to the freedom of the press and the freedom of the slave. The symbology that's located here on the front and top medallion, the top medallion of the plate, is incredibly important to address both Lovejoy's story and that history, as well as American symbolism of justice and democracy. So you actually have at the top center of this plate the statement, Lovejoy, the first martyr to American liberty, which is, of course, taken from the John Quincy Adams statement of him being the first martyr to freedom of press and to enslaved peoples. Now, I'm not sure if that's entirely true. I know there was, that's, of course, John Quincy Adams' opinion. However, the picture that you see here is tough to make out, but you actually have a printing press in the background here, which of course is important because Lovejoy was a printer at the time. You have Lady Justice holding her sword as well as a balance and scales, and she is depicted freeing an enslaved person. This is, of course, a huge statement at the time in 1837 to 1840 when this plate was made. And you do see below here Alton, November 7th, 1837, which is the date of the killing of Elijah Lovejoy. Now that's, the reason we believe that this plate was actually made and produced over in England and, of course, used to raise money for Society of Abolitionists. But we'll move on to the next symbol on the plate, which is that center symbol of the First Amendment to the United States Constitution, which at that time was of course, only 50 years old, that First Amendment and what makes up the beginning of the Bill of Rights. And all over this plate, you see additional symbology and text on the "We hold that all men are created equal." So this, of course, made up the beginning of the U.S. Declaration of Independence, and it was penned in the 1770s by Thomas Jefferson, 1776, at the beginnings of the American Revolution, to make a statement of what the United States and then the early America, not yet fully developed, made a statement for. Now, what's interesting is that in All Men Are Created Equal, the people who were penning the Constitution were slaveholders at the time. There was actually a statement drafted by Jefferson that was anti-slavery. However, it was removed during the editing process. So that statement, of course, is included on this plate to send home that we hold that all men are created equal. The next medallion, and this is all the way to the right of the plate, it says, "Of one blood are all nations of men." This statement in the Catholic and Catholicism tradition, I believe, was said by Paul, if you have any interest in religious history. But it really does talk about equality, and everyone is held together. We all breathe together, we all live together. And that of all one blood are all nations of men, to talk about both the inside rather than the outside. So at the bottom of the plate, in the medallion at the bottom, you'll see a balance or scales, which is, of course, different than Lady Justice above, of where Lady Justice is holding both the balance and her sword. Here at the bottom, the balance generally represents, it actually dates back to Egyptian times with different goddesses through history holding the scales, but it's mostly about the sense of justice of when fighting a court case, the balance of the facts and also the cases, the strengths of the cases, support and opposition. But you have goddesses through religious history, through thousands of years, holding these scales and talking about the embodiment of order, law, and custom, and the divine rightness of law. And those balances depicted with Lady Justice is, of course, important in our legal system today. One of the other symbols on this plate, depicted several times, is the bald eagle with the shield and the olive branch. This eagle looks like he just has the olive branches in his claws, but usually there is also a gripping of both arrows and the olive branch. The olive branch depicting and symbolizing peace, and the arrows just depicting the ready for war, ready for battle. You'll notice that the eagle is facing left, so the want and the hope is to always search for peace, but of course, always being ready for war is in reference to the olive branch petition, or the olive branch petition that was approved in 1775. The eagle itself is holding a shield, which, if it was in color beyond blue and white of this plate, you would see the red and white stripes as well as the blue top, and the shield, of course, depicting almost America's coat of arms, which is now depicted on our Great Seal of the United States. And so with that, if you have any comments or questions about this plate or any other things that you'd like to hear about or that you're interested in, please do comment on the video, send us an email, reach out to us at the museum. We're more than happy to entertain any questions in the future. And I would encourage you to, again, check our website, www.fairfieldhistory.org, and perhaps make a donation or purchase a membership to help supporting the museum during this time. We appreciate all of your interest, and thanks so much for watching and listening today to hear about this old thing, this constitutional grievances and abolitionist ceramic plate.